Welcome to another hardcore bonus video. This, you can tell that this one's a little different. That's because I am currently using the flashback mod to watch a replay, and this one is of me designing the project that I built in episode 6 for the first time. Something I regret doing for... Hold on, let me fly over real quick. Something I regret doing, or regret not doing for this project, is that I didn't record myself designing it. I did build it, I did record myself building it in hardcore mode, but that's not when I designed it, because something that I and many other YouTubers will do is that we design something in creative before doing that in survival or hardcore mode, because that's just so much easier. So for this time, I hit record on the flashback mod, and now I'm going to watch back those recordings and talk about my design process, what I was thinking, and hopefully that'll be helpful for some people, or maybe you just want some more content, so here you go. Before we hit play, first of all, yes, this is, I'm in creative mode right here, I am flying. This is a creative copy of the world. I just copy and pasted it into my worlds folder and then built it so that I could know where everything was going to go. Going into this project, I knew I was going to be making a villager trading hall for librarian villagers, and I knew that I was going to be basing my design on this image, or this drawing, painting, whatever. So I'll just keep that on the screen until I don't really need to show it anymore. For at least the first half of me designing this, I'm just looking at this image constantly and trying to recreate that in Minecraft. Also, I'm going to be watching these replays by going like this, scrolling through the timeline. I'm not going to be rendering out any replays and setting keyframes and doing all that. I'm not going to force myself to put hyper effort into second channel videos, so hopefully this is good enough. Well, let's get started. So first of all, I'm going to be starting out the build in the air, out in the open, because that's just enough room to be building it. I don't want to force myself to build it in the exact spot that I want it to be, because I can use Axiom to move it there when I'm ready to do that. So first of all, I got a huge rectangle started out, and at the beginning I'm trying to figure out the size. It's not like I'm doing any calculations right now. I'm just trying to get a feel for how big it should be, and right now it looks like this is pretty accurate to the size that I did make it, I think, but it's kind of hard to tell because it's all concrete. Also, looks like I did that kelp line that I kept in the final design. I did that like as the second step. And here's the bookshelves that I'm setting out. And let's start going a little faster. Let's skip ahead. So this is, I guess right here, I'm trying to think of the railing design. In the end, I went with you know, just the normal iron bars, rails, whatever you want to call them. But here I'm experimenting with nether brick and diorite. Go forward a little bit. And here I'm trying to think of how the floors are going to be. So this is something that I've done previously in the other part of my base. I have walls so that, and then carpet goes on the walls. So when you step on them, you kind of go up by half a block, and you're able to see more over the railing. Yep. So here's the iron bars, and also there's another inspiration image that I actually probably used more often than the original, and that one has some extra details that I chose to include. And then here I'm kind of experimenting with how the villager pods, slots, whatever you want to call them, are going to look like. There's that. And then I guess I was experimenting with actual villagers. Oh, he's dead. And then, yeah, I came up with the idea for having color coordinated spots so it's easier to tell which enchantment is where. And then I also set it up on the other side. Let's skip a bit more. So yeah, this is something I thought about doing. I thought about having tables on the upper level. This is something I decided to not do. Actually, I kind of did, but it's on a much smaller scale. I decided to do the tables in the center instead. So here's some, I guess, early concept for some big chairs and a table. But yeah, did not end up choosing to do this. Let me actually turn the FOV up a little bit. So now here's the second level of bookshelves, and then there's the third. And then here's the kind of diorite trim on top. And then this is the first column that I made, and it's 3 by 3 with some like rounding to it. Very, very thick, and eventually you'll see what I do with the pillars, but that's what they look like now. That's what they look like for now. Looks like I shortened the floors a little bit because they don't need to be too big, so they get narrower as they go up. Alright, here I'm designing a table. And then copy and paste those across. Kind of expanding it, trying to get a good feel for what size I want it to be. And I think I might expand it in this way later. I guess we'll see. But then here is where it turns the corner. Now I'm designing the, oh wow, this looks bad. I'm designing the other entrance, or the staircase entrance, whatever you want to call it, on this side. At first it goes, the top is on this level, and this looks pretty bad being short, so I'll change it eventually. But here I'm kind of experimenting with different pale fences and stuff like that. And it looks like I've come to the end of this first recording, so I didn't do all of it in one go. This is about an hour of me building, so let's move on to the next recording. Alright, this is about a 2.5 hour long session. Let me change the time to make it brighter. There, that's good. FOV is good. There we go. Alright, let's see what I do next. Alright. Expanding the column. Oh gosh, yeah. I tried some other columns like this. This is kind of an interesting design. It's like two stairs wrapping around each other. It's kind of cool, but it looks bad. Maybe it would look good in some other context. Keep going. So yeah, now I'm making them skinnier. And then here's the one wide columns. And then yeah, these have the, I can't see inside, but there's glowstone in there. And now I'm making the thing on top, the bottom roof trim. And then occasionally I'll duplicate it on the other side because this is a symmetrical build. And now is when I start thinking about doing the ceiling, which at first that looks a little bad. So yeah, here's the first version of the ceiling, and it seems so low and just not right. I guess it's supposed to be from the very center of a circle, so if you imagine like this being a circle and right like at this point should actually be right here. If you know what I'm talking about, maybe I'm just not making any sense. So I'm trying to move it up. I did have a little difficulty with this. So here I'm trying to set it up from this side, and I'm generating circles with Axiom. And yeah, it's kind of going into the build right there. Try it again. And here I'm just continuously trying to get that ceiling shape right. And eventually I think this is what I go with. Yeah, pretty much. Okay, and now I'm starting to do the staircase on the other side, and I tried to do some interesting stuff with it, which you'll see, but it just didn't work out. And I'm using red sand as kind of like a temporary thing. Yeah, I tried to do like a circular staircase, if you can imagine what that would look like. But hold on, I keep getting thrown ahead. If I start moving forward and then I skip, or maybe not, sometimes it just puts me in a weird spot. Anyways, doing the staircase. Oh yeah, I tried doing a spiral staircase, or kind of like a curved thing, but that just did not work. So yeah, I kind of went the easy route, connected it up. Stairs are pretty simple. And in this spot, I didn't really know what to do with this. I don't love what I did here. I mean, I guess I could open this up, because this will be like empty space. So, you know, maybe I could do something in the future there. And then I'll copy and paste this to the other side eventually. There we go. And then, you know, change the colors back to normal. And then what am I doing here? Oh yeah, I'm trying to get the right size for the sunroof. And then I outlined this. I thought this was going to be so difficult, trying to get the texture or pattern that's on the ceiling, but actually it was very easy. So first I did it with diamonds. I just, every 3 or every 4 blocks, just diamonds that go all the way around. And then I did lines, and I don't know if this was just an easy thing to do or if I got lucky, but everything just kind of lined up. Like it was in center. It's centered. It was just perfect. Everything just lined up. So yeah, I kept it as diamonds for a while, but yeah, I'll turn it into diorite eventually. And here, if I... Yes. I mentioned multiple times in the video that lighting sucks. This is what I mean when I say lighting sucks. Because look at this. This is wide open, pretty much. You know, giant hole in the roof. All the walls are all open. But look how dark it is in some spots. That sucks. With the shaders that I'm using, it's better. I tweaked it so it would look better on video. But yeah, that's why I had to put glowstone or hide glowstone wherever I could. Oh, and here I also scatter around some tables with lights, and then putting glowstone in there. And there we go. Let's see how this looks. And there we go. That's a lot better than it was before. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the stuff you have to do if you want a big, open interior. You've got to spam lights everywhere you can. That was session 2, so let's move on to the next one. Also, I put in the glass ceiling with some I don't know what you would call this, but I've got these chains to make it look like it's not one giant chunk of glass, because that's just not realistic. Alright, here's the third session. It looks like I actually forgot to record something, because I think I added these things to the pillars, which this is just a case of me doing or adding more detail that just doesn't need to be there, and I ended up never building these. But more importantly, I copied this and I pasted it in the spot that I wanted it to be. It looks like. Yeah. You can see how it overlaps. I don't know why it's lagging so much right now. Don't tell me it's gonna be better if I turn shaders on. No, it's still lagging for some reason. Why is it lagging so hard? It was not doing this before. Boop. 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 These lag spikes are so annoying. That's not good. Okay, I had Premiere open while I was recording, so maybe that was why it was doing that. So, yeah, I was at the point where I was comfortable with the size of it, so I thought that I would just paste it into where I wanted it to be. And then I will, if I skip forward a little bit, I'm gonna have to clear out all the trees and the terrain and stuff inside. Alright, and here's the giant wall. And now this is where we kind of move away from trying to replicate the source material, and this is where I kind of start freestyling and trying to fit it in with the environment, because my initial plan was to have the sunroof kind of on a flat surface. This was another spot I was thinking about having it, but there's another building I want to be here, so I didn't put it there. This was the other flattest spot that I could find that's around this area. But the point is, it's not entirely flat, so it is sticking out like this, so the point is I have to build some stuff on the outside to fit it in. Because I'm not going to change the interior. The interior, this is a build that I made from the inside out. Alright, and here I'm expanding these things. What I did is I just made it symmetrical. I think eventually this is just going to be a path to nowhere. But then this one is going to go up to the stairs. Or it is the stairs that go up to the surface. So there, and then over here we can, like, look how big this giant open area is. Like, there could be anything in here. But, you know, that's something for the future. Kind of expanding the walls, and then I guess I'm kind of tweaking it a little bit. And then putting on the frame for the roof of this building. And yeah, this is where I'm experimenting with where or how steep the roof is going to be. This, I think, if we fly over here, this one goes up by a slab or a half block. This one goes up by 1 block every time using stairs. Same with this one. So instead of using either of those, I decided to go with, actually none of these, but 1.5 blocks every time. So it's a little bit steeper than a 1 block angle. And using that kind of gave me the idea to keep this, which this one goes up by 1 block every time. And then that kind of inspired me to kind of do this thing where you have 3 different angles, and I like how that looks. So, oh, also, I'm using emerald ore right here. This is an example of, I kind of do this a lot with builds. I want something that's in between sort of a white or grayish color and green from the copper. And instead of choosing either one, I kind of go with a block that's in between. So that's why I've got emerald ore. Obviously, if I needed more of it, I just wouldn't do that because emerald ore is a bit rare. Oh, here we go. This is when I start thinking about that, like, giant ruins tower. And yeah, I thought I was going to have a giant platform that it was going to be on. Looks like I generated a giant hexagon. And yeah, initially it was, well, I wanted it to be, well, I guess let's kind of skip forward a little bit more and see. Looks like I worked on it a little bit and then I stopped. Okay. Before we get onto that, yeah, I thought it would be better to just expand the roof as it is, and then if I need to get rid of some of it, I can. And so this is when I start working on that giant ruins tower. As I mentioned in the video, I'm using, what is it called? Tor Gavalchka from, which is a tower in Skellige in The Witcher 3, which I have played The Witcher 3 a couple times. I really like that game, but I don't know exactly how I came up with the idea for the tower. I think I looked up, like, Elvish Ruins Tower on Google, and eventually I saw that and decided to use it. So that's what I'm, right now, that's what I'm using as inspiration. And that tower, it's almost circular, and in Minecraft it's really hard to, like right here, you can't really tell that it's a hexagram or hexagon. But when you get further away, maybe if you squint your eyes, you can see the shape there. And that's just how Minecraft is when you can only do 90-degree angles. I didn't want it to look circular, but I also didn't want it to be too big, so I kind of had to find the right size of big enough to have enough blocks to distinguish itself from a circle, and small enough to not like be overwhelmingly massive. So I think, is this the size that I go with? I think so. Oh, nope. Looks like I made it a little bit smaller. And yeah, I think this is the size I go with. And then, again, just following along, trying to recreate the main tower from the inspiration. I made it a bit shorter. Or actually, I think I just moved it down. And then I'm using very easy to distinguish blocks that stand out, like gold, to highlight the corners, all 6 corners of the hexagon, and then different levels that kind of shoot out by 1 block, and then putting them in those arches. This was really, really hard working with different angles, and I think if you look at some, like, this one looks a lot wider than this one does, and that's just how it turned out, how it is. And then making the windows. And a lot of this is just repeating. You know, this thing is going to be the exact same as this is. But still, it was tricky to build this part. And then at the top it gets more ruined. Let's see what I do here. What am I doing? Okay, right now I guess I'm trying to smooth out the outline of the sunroof. Yeah, sometimes I'll just jump from one thing to another if I feel like it. And then this is the level of sort of that main platform. And before I move this one in, I'm gonna do this first. Alright, and here's when I really get the shape of the stone platforms down. And then this, I decided to, instead of having a staircase that goes up by 1 or even half a block, it goes up by 1.5 blocks every time. And that's not to contrast with this, which is kind of the opposite, but it's smooth enough to kind of be like a giant ramp. Like, remember right here, there's going to be sort of like a temporary cabin building, so I imagine you would need to have the ability to have like wagons go up this ramp instead of just having giant stairs, but that explanation kind of doesn't make sense because there's also like no way to get a ramp from anywhere to here. But again, like, I'm thinking about expanding in this way, so yeah, don't think about it too long because I like how this looks and I'm good with that. Also, yep, I put this into place, and now I'm trying to, because just having one giant tower wouldn't really look that good, so I have some walls extending, so it's sort of like a triangular shape that extends into the mountain instead of just standing on its own. And then reusing those arches. And oh, right here, if you look at the source material, there's like a, I don't know what you would call it. There's clearly a circular shape that's been like carved out, or the building has been built to have a circle shape. I don't know how to describe it, but I tried to do that with the hexagon, but yeah, ultimately did not go through with that. Alright, and that's it for this session. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, let's make it a little bit brighter. Alright, from now on, I've kind of done all of the major part of the building, so now the sessions are going to get a bit shorter, and the details, or I'm going to do more details, and the overall changes are going to be less significant from here on out. So here is where I'm building these diorite platforms, and I'm not just looking at the inspiration image for that. I'm also, yeah, I made a copy of it, you know, just in case I change something I don't want to. It's always good to have copies of stuff, just in case. So, as I was saying, I'm also looking at this building that I built a year ago as part of, you know, this whole project. And this is like another Prismarine Ruins building, and then this one is sitting on a big chunk of diorite. So that's where I got the idea for more diorite. And looking at it now, it kind of looks like, what do you call it? Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings. That's kind of what it's reminding me of right now. But actually, the final thing does not remind me of that, so I'll probably change it some bit. And then, as an extra bit of detail, I made an entrance that goes into the mountain that kind of, well, right now it goes nowhere, but I think that's cool to have right there. And here I'm doing this building. It's both the weirdest and most normal looking part of the project. But yeah, that was really easy to build. I kind of described in the video how I do diagonal rectangle buildings. Let's see, what am I doing now? Oh, I guess I started working on these And this is like really standard easy. I think it goes 4 blocks, 4 blocks, 4 blocks, 4 blocks, 4, 4, 4, you know, really easy. I guess I missed when I put that in. Oh yeah, I must have done it in the last session. Let's see. Alright, just doing some detailing on this building. Put in these nether brick fences to exaggerate what these chains were supposed to do, which you can't really see them from far away. Fixing the terrain a little bit. What else do I do here? Yeah, you see I'm kind of just jumping around doing whatever. Looks like I'm just fixing up some stuff. This video is becoming longer than I expected it to, so let's kind of go a bit faster. This is a chunk of... well, I don't have to go there, but, you know, the other part of my base, I just copy and pasted it here because I was going to do the same thing on this wall. Put in that staircase at some point. Did some work there. It looks like I did some work over there. Yeah, it's hard to keep track of what exactly I'm doing. And now this step is hard. Doing the ruination of sort of these solid chunks of rock. I'm trying to make them look ruined. I mentioned in the video, building ruins is harder than normal buildings, which doesn't make sense at first, but if you've ever done it, you know what I mean. Because first you have to, at the very least, visualize what the final product looks like, and then you have to make the effort to ruin it, which is just overall more effort. So that's what I'm doing. That top one, and I guess I do the bottom one next. Yep, there. I think I made this a little more detailed than I needed to. I used a lot of slabs and walls, stairs. When eventually, I think most of like the slabs are going to be snow. So I didn't really need to do that. Oh, now I'm doing that, the ruining process, I'm doing that to this building, like taking out some of the parts of the windows. And I'm not going to fly around and look at every detail I did. And then finally getting rid of the blue concrete and the gold, because I feel like I don't need those anymore to visualize. So there, it looks a lot better with all prismarine, and it's a little bit different. These are prismarine bricks, and this is just the regular prismarine block. Now I'm filling in the windows with sort of like these wart blocks. And it doesn't really make sense because they are windows. So they're supposed to be open, but you can see inside. I don't want to be able to see inside because there is no inside. So I did the same thing that I did over here with these windows, and I think that works just fine. Let's skip forward a little bit. Oh yeah, sort of expanding on the triangular idea, having the tower kind of stick out less by connecting it to the mountain. And then eventually I will ruin this by taking out a big chunk right here. And then I'm adding some gradients to the windows, and because I ruined this bit a little bit. Let's see where I'm at, what I'm doing. Oh, I'm also kind of building these out. And that's where this session ends. I think here I'm going to, let me get the time bright. Okay, there. Yep, this is where I do this interior. And I'm using my previous project as a reference for this. It's not exactly the same, but very similar if you know what that looks like. And this will change a bit if I skip like right, boom. I guess it looks mostly the same. So yeah, I like how I did the support beams. I think it would have been too much if they went all the way down and got in the way of the stairs like it does right here. I think having it like this is a lot better. And then look at that. If let's say I'm like standing right here, you can see those support beams sticking out right there. I did not like how that looks, and eventually I will change it to where like right here it'll go up by like right here and then go across again, which looks weird from here, but it helps to open up this giant flat wall some more. But I guess we'll talk about that when I get to it. These chandeliers, I've made a bunch of these in the other part of my base. These banners, which I really like how these banners look. I still haven't come up with a design for the entire thing. You know, I could do anything, put any like pixel art or use actual banners on here. I imagine it would be a little bit windy coming into here, so the banners are being blown a little bit this way instead of being straight down, which gives it some shape and movement, which I like. Alright, adding some lighting because well, I'm not going to do it, but if I was to turn off the shaders, it would be very dark in here. So, adding as much lighting as I can. And I really like how this inside, all the inside of this building came out. I added some pale wood, stripped pale wood, like highlights on the wall to make it not all the same. And funny enough, if I go on the opposite side, because you would think, well, I have diorite walls here, so you would see those sticking out. But I come up with a solution for that. If I skip ahead. Okay, I guess, oh, there it is. Yeah, these support bits that help not only to cover up the pale wood, but it also gives the building some more shape on otherwise a very, very flat wall. What else did I do? Maybe some more of this inside. Yeah, here's where I open up the ceiling to try and get some more natural light in. This is like the peak of my frustrations with the lighting system in Minecraft. And eventually I'll just straight up put lights behind trapdoors in the wall here. Alright, something I forgot to mention is right here, you can see these little bits. These are actually stairs next to slabs. And I have those because if they weren't there, you would be able to see a bit of green sticking out, which would look bad. So I had to put those there. If I wanted to keep this green trim on the inside, which is on theme, it's consistent with the other buildings part of my base, so I wanted to have that. In this session, I do some decorating on the interior, I think is all I do. And I guess I missed this, but I guess I can talk about it right now. This is a pixel art of the original drawing that this whole thing is based on. The way I got this is I used, I think I've talked about it in a video before. It's called, oh, I forgot what it's called. Okay, yeah, it's called Pixel Stacker. And it's basically you can upload an image and then convert that into Minecraft blocks. It's hard to tell that that's what it is, but yeah, that is what this painting is. And yeah, I'm adding some like debris, cobwebs, and then those lights, and then here I shifted up. You see those beams? Looks a lot better like that. Something I didn't talk about is I really like this detail, although it's kind of bad, but kind of good. If you put a book in a lectern, it looks like there's a book open on the table, but also like the bottom of the lectern kind of stands out, and it doesn't fit in with the color. I don't know. I like how it looks, but it's very obvious that it's not, part of the table. In the test world, I added item frames with books and pots with flowers and saplings in them. This is just more detail than I needed to do, so eventually I just didn't do that. This one is 8 minutes, it says. I don't know what I do in this for 8 minutes. What am I doing here? Oh, this is... Yeah, to add some texture to the ruined building, I selected all of the prismarine and I used an Axiom brush, I think it's a noise painter brush, to add some copper blocks to detail it a bit. So here I added a giant wall of deep slate as kind of like the cutoff point for what I was never going to finish building, similar to what I did here, which is a spot that I will in the future expand, but for now it's just blocked off. I did that same thing, and I decided to leave it open in the end. Let's see, what do I do here? I don't know if I mentioned this, but all of this was done 3 months ago, so I'm trying to talk about stuff I did 3 months ago. I don't remember exactly what I did. Okay, yeah, I guess I added some details to the wall, lit stuff up, and then, oh yeah, here's when I did the floor. Nothing really special about that. And then added some lights all over, polishing the build up a little bit more. One of the final things that I did before starting in the actual hardcore world is I put the design on the roof, which is an element inspired by Rivendell that I also did on the other project. I'm using the same blocks: oak wood, bricks, polished granite, and weathered copper. Is that what you would call that one? I don't know. The green copper. I'm not gonna... I guess I'll just slowly go over myself building. Here, I'll change the time. Also, phantom spawn in creative mode. That is so dumb, I think. Anyways. Oh yeah, green trim on the top. I don't know, not much to say about this, just me trying to come up with a good roof design. And then that is mirrored on... Oh, I guess not. Well, it will be mirrored on this side. But this is pretty much what I came up with. Okay, one final recording I have. It's 8 minutes. And I guess I'm filling in this side of the stone platform. Yeah, there we go. And then, from there, I took this whole thing as a giant schematic and used that to build in the actual real hardcore world. And you'll notice it's not done. I did not... Usually what I do is I finish it completely and then I take that and start building for the real thing. Something I regret doing when I was working on this project is that I built basically what you see before I started doing the building in hardcore mode. I basically finished it, got all the details, all the snow. I did that before any of the building in hardcore mode, and that made things a bit trickier. For example, when I was just trying to get the basic shape of everything down, I would have to see all of these details as part of the schematic, which was annoying. I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense, but something I learned from this project was to do the details later, because not only is that more interesting for the video, it's also just easier to work with. Okay, this is an updated version of the real hardcore world. You'll notice all of the copies of stuff are gone. All of this was built in hardcore mode, and then this world was copied, and this is the copy of the real world that I'm now going to do the details in, as you'll see like right here. So I guess I started with the roof, and by the way, this was recorded like 2 weeks ago when the rest of it was like 3 months ago. So I guess if it makes sense, I got to a certain point and then I decided, okay, now I'll take all this, I'll put it in creative mode, and then I'll do all the details, so I don't have to think about all those details when I'm just trying to get the basic shape down. So here I'm doing the snow on one side, and I didn't really know exactly what to do for the snow. I was thinking maybe have the entire side covered in snow and then one side only a little bit. I decided to do most of it covered in snow, but you can still see some of the actual roof. The idea is that there'd be a lot of snow that gets accumulated in the middle of this sort of like valley or indent in the mountain. I don't know what you would call it. And then it gets blown up against the roof, and then on this side a ton of wind would be coming from the open area and blowing it off of the roof here. And I think there's only like a little bit on the corner that stays, and then I also put the snow on there. And then all of this glass was just the regular normal glass, and I don't know if you've ever noticed this before, but the regular default glass is the only glass type that has is it opaque pixels that you can't see through. And then if we skip to right here, you'll see every pixel is at least somewhat transparent with the colored or stained glass. And the idea is that it would all be black, but there's some snow and like varying amounts of density that I've gathered on the roof or the window. And I think that's all I did for this session. Let's see what I do here. This was probably the hardest part of the detailing step, or putting snow on everything. Doing it on this building, it was very tricky. I could do that, or I'll just turn it to day. And so yeah, here I'm decorating this with snow. I'm basically putting it on any ledges. All you have to do is just think of if there was constantly snow, either snowing from the sky or blowing into it, where would it accumulate? Well, probably on these ledges, not like right here. There's not going to be any snow on here because it would just fall off, but on these ledges, let's skip ahead. There we go. It would make sense that there would be snow on there. So that's kind of the thought process there. And I'm using snow, diorite, and clay as sort of a gradient of more snow to less snow. Yeah, on flat surfaces like this that wouldn't be walked on, it's just completely covered in snow. Alright, this is the final session of creative test building. And let's see what I start off with. Alright, let's make it clear. Alright, yeah, I'm adding some, obviously the snow to this part, and I also did some weathering, which is similar to the copper on the Prismarine. I'm not a huge fan of how it looks, but I do think it makes it better, so I decided to keep it. I used white terracotta and mushroom stem blocks for that. Whoa. Uh-oh. It's frozen. My computer is making loud noises. Uh-oh. Alright, let's try to get through this. This is the last session. I think I already said that. I left off like right here. Oh, that's a lot of red. Okay, yeah, so this is when I start trying to do, I guess I'll go to the very end and you'll see. You see this texturing with the andesite and the tuff along with the stone brick. All of that, I use red to mark that out because I don't want to select these stone bricks. So all of the stuff that I want to have that texturing, I'm marking with red. Red concrete. It kind of looks cool like that. All red. So there we go. I used the noise painter brush, and I used the exact same brush that I used. Hold on. For this project. See if you see these. And that's just for some consistency between parts of the base. Oh, actually, I forgot. I messed up. I used the first version of this brush that I made instead of like the fourth version, which was the actual one. So I undid that. Forget what I said. And then I marked out where the snow is going to be with white concrete, I believe. So the spots where there's going to be snow is like places where people wouldn't be walking. Like, who's going to walk right here, right? So that's going to be covered in snow. So yeah, I'm kind of doing a combination of marking with red and then marking with white. Trying to get a good path done. Same thing on the other sides. Doing that same thing, and also doing it on these. This was a bit tricky to do, especially in the actual hardcore world. Yeah, first I used the brush on everything, so this is the correct brush. Added some snow piles in there. This is like the very final detailing. And then here, what I did is I marked off the stairs with pink so that I could use the brush on all the pink. Did that, and then manually made those all stairs. I'm sure you can paint stairs with stairs, but I don't know how to set that up, and I just decided to do this. And then same thing with the slabs. So it looks kind of weird with the blocks, but I went by and fixed those by hand. So now the ramp has that same stone texture. And then that's like pretty much it, other than like, you know, some small snow details here and there. And that is the build process. After this, I took this as a schematic and built it in the real hardcore world, and that's it. There's probably some other stuff that I didn't talk about, like these little trees. I didn't talk about these, but you can download the world for free and check everything out yourself if you would like to do that. Otherwise, this inside is a schematic available on my Discord. Oh, I just tried to go into third person, but where am I? Oh, right here. If you enjoyed this sort of unusual video format where I'm going over my build thinking, leave a like, let me know what you think about it, and that's all I got. Thank you and goodbye.